County Council's now in session. Is that an echo? Okay. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Honorable Michael Johnson, District 1.
Instead of a normal invocation today, I'm going to ask you all to join me in a moment of silence for those who died in Las Vegas, for our country, for our troops, and for this council as we're trying to do things. The world is getting more and more challenging by the day. And so I ask that you take a few minutes or take a moment and pray. Thank you. Amen. Nice to actually hear a baby. That's a good thing. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next order of business is oath of office. If you would come forward when I call your name out, so you can take the oath from Mr. Kendry. Alton Johnson, Caitlin Velazquez. I'm sure, I'm sorry.
That's close.
Yeah, say it one more time. Okay.
I'm all, do I go here?
Right there.
Okay.
Right in this for the council may wish to greet you, say a few words.
Okay.
And on behalf of York County, thank you for serving. If you kindly raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
according to the Constitution of this state
according to the Constitution of this state
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of the office
to which I have been appointed,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
and preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So help me God.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
No. But it looked good in.
Yeah, it was,
Okay, nobody signed up for appearances today, so next is public forum session. Remember, you have 2 minutes. We just listen to you. We don't interact. We don't accept or offer questions to you. We just hear what you have to say. At the end of 2 minutes, I have to cut you off in fairness to the next person. First person that signed up, I think that's Michael Schofield. Is that, if I'm reading?
Michael Schoenfeld.
Close.
Prison Break.
And be sure to give your name and address.
My name is Michael Schoenfeld. I live at 738 Rocky Hollow Trail in Clover, South Carolina, 29710. I'm here on behalf of speaking for areas in this community that can use some more venues for events. I am the president-elect of the Clover Rotary Club, and I'm also on the board of directors of the Clover Chamber of Commerce. And I know for a fact we have issues finding event places, especially on our side in Clover. And right now, it seems to me that there are some places that could possibly be holding events that are not perhaps zoned for that reason. And I'm here to speak strongly and urge you to consider having locations such as the one in Clover, that is at 967 Stallion Spirit Court, and the others involved in York County be considered to be public venues to allow for additional parties, events, corporate events, as well as weddings and all the other events with our is the word burgeoning, blustering, growing population in this county. There is a need for more venues to celebrate the good things in life, especially considering today some of the bad things that we hear. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next person is Jonathan Wright to discuss Cherokee Farms.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Wright. I'm at 2678 Landing Point Drive in Clover. And I'm going to follow up with what Michael started. I'm specifically talking about the Cherokee Farms venue. My wife and I are trying to purchase the venue, and as we were trying to purchase it, we found out that it was zoned RC1, and so our whole purchase of the venue has kind of stalled. There's several things that I want to point out here. This really needs to be prioritized to be done quickly for several reasons. First off, I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of Rideability. Rideability is based there. With the venue for sale, they don't actually know that they have a permanent home until that sale goes through. So one of my priorities is to make sure that they have that permanent home, which is one of the major reasons that we are looking to purchase it. I am a volunteer at Rideability, and as such, I have attended several events there too. And in attending those events, I've talked to a lot of people that have been at the event, including especially the community. The community is very, very much behind Rideability. They're very, very much behind the Cherokee Farms venue itself to continue to exist as a venue. Also, in looking toward buying this, we've worked with several party vendors and with caterers and such. And everybody that we have talked to is excited about having it continue. Once again, just like Michael said, they all say there is a need for this venue to continue. So here's where the issue comes in for us. Our understanding is that this code change is going to take place. The question is time. So for us specifically, we were actually hoping to close on this venue back in August. We being my wife and I, set up a corporation to own this. To do that, we're paying a lot of fees every month now that we are still having to pay out of pocket with no income coming in to help. And so it's putting us in kind of a bit of a bad position because we either need to get to the point that we can close this purchase or we may have to back out of this purchase. And we really don't want that to happen, especially now with the zoning question. If we had to back out, who may come to buy it later? And what would their... I'm done.
I gave you time to 30 seconds or so over, but I got to cut you off.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for your
That's
time.
okay. Next person is John Burks.
My name is John Burks. I live at 1567 Fayrene Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. It's in the county, 29732. My wife and I are the owner of Cat's Paw Winery. I'm here tonight to speak not only for myself, but other small businesses that are opening or plan to open in York County. For the last 45 years, I've been a strong advocate of owning small businesses. And for the past 20 years, I've been an advocate in York County for anyone that wants to open a small business in York County. What a great place to be. Then I open one again and find out, okay, never mind, I won't go into that. As a small business owner, I think we as small business owners have a lot to offer the community. Primarily tourism and our addition to the local culture of York County. Just because we are new doesn't mean we shouldn't be here in York County. When a new business comes into the county, the government should, in my opinion, work to help us new business owners, not impede or delay our development and growth. To continue to attract new small businesses to York County, the county government should work to see how they can help us to open our business and prosper. Not tell us why we can't open in York County due to unknown or obscure rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next person is Greg and Diane Huffman. So if you each want to talk 2 minutes, I'll split it, or?
Just me for 2 minutes.
Okay, you got it.
I'm Diane Huffman. I live at Post Office Box 188, Blowing Rock, North Carolina. My husband and I drove down from Blowing Rock today on behalf of the Lodge at Cherokee Farms, and we want to thank you for allowing us, all of us, to address the council for your forward action in inserting verbiage pertaining to event centers in the RC1 zoning of the York County ordinances. The event center, the lodge that we have, is popular because of the beautiful surroundings that the Cherokee Farms community offers. Many families from the greater York County area and the Charlotte area have had their weddings at the lodge. These events have had a positive impact on the sales, the sustainability, and the growth of local York County businesses that serve these events. Without these events, they obviously would not have the sales. The York County Chamber of Commerce utilizes the lodge on occasion, as well as many other York County businesses and schools that the event center uses as their venue for their functions. We are community oriented, and we donate this space from time to time for worthy charities and for homeowners meetings. This lodge has operated already for 11 years with no complaints. I think it's proven its acceptance in the Cherokee Farm community. We're asking the council to allow the lodge to continue in its present operation in the council's support of stable business growth in this county. Once again, we want to thank you for allowing us to speak, and if you have questions for us, we'll be glad to address them. I can leave contact information if you're interested. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you can if you want to leave it with Michael.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's see, Michael, did your wife want to speak? Yes. Wendy? Yes. Welcome.
And thank you for the opportunity of speaking. I am Wendy Schoenfeld, the Executive Director of Rideability Therapeutic Riding Center. We work with children and adults with special needs at our program. We've been at the facility for the last 5 years, and we use the lodge a lot for our fundraisers. It being a 501c3 charity for allowing our special needs community to be able to be at our center, we need to do a lot of fundraising. We are also a Special Olympics training center, so we do a lot of Special Olympics trainings there and events there to help Special Olympians compete. And without that lodge, we don't get to do what we do. Also for the fact of if that lodge doesn't get sold, hopefully by the rights who are coaches and family members of us, whoever comes in, we don't know what's going to happen with rideability and where we go and all the children, hundreds of children and families that we serve now, and being both North Carolina and South Carolina Special Olympics training site. Having the rights come in has been a blessing for us, being an unknown thing of what's going to happen. So that lodge being able to continue on for the rights gives us a home that we will stay in so that we can continue to serve our community of our special needs families that so deserve this opportunity to be able to do things that they would never have been given the opportunity to do without us and our beautiful horses and our amazing volunteers. So we graciously hope that you'll see that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person is Courtney Hastings.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Hastings. My family and I live on 474 Bethel School Road in Clover, South Carolina, just a couple lots down from the planned concrete plant. We have 13 beautiful acres with half-an-acre garden and a hobby farm full of chickens, cows, pig, and rabbits that we raise for food for ourselves all year long. My husband and I are both in the engineering field and are both very familiar with the kinds of industry, their positive impacts on the community and negative impacts on nearby water, air, and traffic. We moved from Mecklenburg County and love the lifestyle of York County. We've been blessed with friends in the area. When we told them about the concrete plant near us, everyone became concerned that there might be other plants just like this one that would affect them as well. Many discovered that they lived near a lot that was zoned industrial as well. We all had discussions about the increased truck traffic and if the roads were even graded for that kind of use. We talked about the increased noise level that comes with any type of industry moving in. We're country folk and we like our peace and quiet. It's where we live and it's where we all want to live. We want to walk outside our home and smell the fresh country air, not dust or grasses from the nearby plant that have the capability of giving us cancer or affecting our well-being. Specifically, for a concrete plant, whether a dry mix or a wet mix plant, there are various types of phenols, benzenes, and formaldehydes, all known carcinogens, that are water runoff concerns as well as concerns of leaching into the soil and affecting the aquifer in the neighboring wells are getting their drinking water from. There are numerous amounts of little creeks in our county land that connect to Lake Wiley, where many of its residents swim and fish. Any type of industry in this county would be adding its wastewater and runoff to the lake and connecting streams that we all enjoy. There's a place for industry in this world. We need it. We need its products for life's everyday function. However, due to the environmental and health and safety concerns that come along with industry, our county needs to reevaluate the zoning we have in certain lots to ensure that industry cannot pop up in someone's backyard and affect their way of life. Industry has no place next to our homes. Thank you for your time, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to voice mine and my neighbors' concerns today.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Next person is David. Is that Blue? Was that correct? Yes. Okay.
My name is David Blue. I live at 3806 Marlette Drive, York, South Carolina. It's past the Catawba Nuclear Station. I'm here to talk about the proposed development of the property out there of 348 acres. We've attended some meetings with Duke, gone back and forth. This property was zoned in 1986 as RD2, which permits apartments, condos, and a density out there. We've got 3 lanes leaving Duke Power from their employees' exit to the road, 2 going across a bridge. What they want to do is develop from the bridge back. They've said at the meeting last night that they have a study out that'll be maybe 3 months. A lot of times they said that not my area of expertise was quotes from Duke more than 5 or 6 times, I believe. And we'd like to see a moratorium on it till we get the study done. We don't want them to sell the property and then the county has zoned it 33 years ago for this. A lot has changed out here, especially, after 9/11 and everything, to get a more secure area over there and to ensure people's way of life out there. And silt runoff and everything for clear cutting the area and everything is a major concern. I don't know what else to say. I'm not a public speaker, but it is something that needs to be looked at more by the council. I'd prefer if the council would put a moratorium on it and rezone it, and also take a look at the reports if and when they come out and see what they have to say about it. Duke has done a good job about security out there. Past the bridge, being it's a 2-lane bridge back through there, if anything happens to the bridge, people are stuck. They can't go anywhere. They can't get away from the plant. They can't get down the road. They're looking at, if they put condos in there, also marinas. There's no, is it commercial property, HOA or not, for them to put it in, and they would need a commercial permit for commercial property because they rent it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, we have no public hearings. We have no old business. New business. Council to consider, I feel like I'm at a Michael Johnson-driven council meeting.
Moving right along. We did it special for you tonight.
Oh, okay. New business, council to consider the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for financial year 2018.
Move to approve the following awards. Arts Council of York County, $5,000. The Old English District, $15,000. Summerfest, $5,000. Culture and Heritage, $15,000, and CVB, $100,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Winkler.
I'd just like to say I made this motion because we have been back and forth on H-Tax for the last month or two with different festivals and things, and we cut Summerfest, their $6,500 application last month. Then we wound up funding Christmasville and back and forth on that. We gave Christmasville a little more time. This is a separate application. This Summerfest is the only festival that applied for A-Tax. And so I felt like this is a way to maybe give them the same one-year warning official warning that we gave Christmasville last meeting, and not actually allocate any more money than what the A-Tax committee recommended. We just moved $5,000 from Old English District to Summerfest.
Mr. Roddy.
I'll say, I'll certainly support, making this right with the people of Summerfest, because I felt really bad that Monday night when we kind of snatched the rug out from under them. So if nothing but anything, I think this kind of makes it right, because we didn't give, in my opinion, just my opinion, we didn't give fair enough warning, considering we took a vote on Monday and Summerfest was on Saturday. So if in my heart, I feel like this is the right thing to do. But just know that the warning has been placed out there for those seeking some of our H-Tax and A-Tax money. So I'll support it just because it simply makes it right, and it's something that I'm glad I'll have an opportunity to put back in place, put back in motion, because it's the right thing to do.
Oh, Mr. Williams.
I guess I'd just like to follow up. I'm going to support the motion because Mr. Winkler asked me to. But I guess I just want to reiterate what I talked about last time and what Mr. Huckabee said. I think we need to have the formal discussion, especially before we tell people that we're not going to fund them in the future. One thing he said was we can look at bringing in tourism is a good thing, bringing in H-Tax dollars, replacing the H-Tax dollars that you take out is a good thing. H-Tax or A-Tax in this consideration. In fact, Summerfest, it brings in tourism. I don't think it replaces the A-Tax dollars or H-Tax in this particular one. And I guess they're both good. I think the council still needs to have the discussion. Maybe we decide where we have only generate unincorporated tax. Maybe we decide where it doesn't matter what the tourism is, but I envision some kind of hybrid where this project, where we grade all of them on both of those things. And if they really rise in either one, it takes the whole grade up. But I will support this because of, I told Mr. Winkler does the same reason Mr. Roddy gives some weight to that too. But I do think this is a discussion that we need to have, that we have a couple of us have said things, but we have not collectively decided as a group that way. And if we decide not, I'll go with what we decide, but we have not had that discussion yet. That's the only thing I want to add.
I'm going to support.
Love.
Sorry, I'm going to support you on this, Robert, because you asked me to, and I'm not righting a wrong because I don't feel like what we did was wrong. Yeah. But I do feel like that we can split this money up and maybe benefit Summerfest a little bit. So I just respect your suggestion on this.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I think I agree with Chad to some extent that we need to have this discussion, and I think that we should have both the A-Tax and the H-Tax decisions at the same time, and I am in favor of council having a discussion that gives policy directives of how we want to see that spent, because in my mind, we're doing what we usually do in years past, and we aren't necessarily making any policy decision. I think that's council's job, but I'm supporting this tonight.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. Next item. Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the Code of the County of York, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Sections 155.009, 155.0428, lot development requirements, subsections A, minimum lot setbacks, B3, RC1, RC2, minimum lot requirements, B4, RD1, RD2, minimum lot requirements, and B9, UD minimum lot requirements. In order to revise the definition of patio home, revise the minimum lot size setbacks for single-family residential accessory buildings, and residential accessory uses, increase the minimum lot size for the RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2 zoning district, to remove minimum lot size requirements for the UD zoning district, to remove the permissive 30% lot size reduction for single-family residential developments, to provide for a reduction in minimum lot size for small lot subdivisions, to add a minimum setback requirement for retention walls higher than 4 feet, to remove CB from residential accessory uses, to invoke the pending ordinance doctrine, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve with the requirement that a workshop be held prior to second reading.
Second.
How about removing the pending ordinance doctrine language with that motion?
I support the pending ordinance doctrine language on this ordinance, so I certainly, if you want to make a motion to amend.
No, I'm not as chair, but good enough. And we had a second.
I think Rob, did you?
Either one will do.
So who wants to
2
speak?
seconds. Second.
Ms. Love.
I just recommend we approve it.
Okay, any other, Mr. Winkler, I'll just come down the line.
I just, at this stage, I plan to support this motion with the hope and belief that council will also support the one following this, because I do have concerns with just saying a blanket minimum lot size period and increasing that lot size, and not having some way of adjusting that at times, because my children are in their 20s and early 30s, and I know them and their friends have had some really hard times finding new family starter homes in York. I looked, the median home price in York County is $279,000. And I know my children who are just starting out in new jobs and starting families can't afford $279,000 homes. Doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean those homes are bad homes. It just means they're starting. We were all there at one point and starting a family and starting a business, and we couldn't afford the houses we live in now. So I worry about that, and I also work with seniors, many of whom in my full-time career, many of whom want to downsize over time and get smaller lots because they either physically, financially can't take care of the lots, the yards and stuff they have. They need something smaller and easier to take care of. So I worry, and I said this earlier, government has a tendency to quickly fix one problem and create 3 other problems in the process of it. Act 388 is a perfect example of that. I worry that if we do this without that workshop so that we understand exactly what it is we're doing, that we can cause consequences to where we can't get housing in here for our new families, and we need the workforce. We need the labor here to be able to do all these new jobs we're bringing in with economic development. The gentleman standing out there in the hallway is a public servant. He's a law enforcement officer. Our police, firefighters, and first responders do that because it's a calling, not because they make a really good living at it most of the time. And they need to be able to afford housing to live in our communities as well. So I have concerns, and I fully hope and expect that this next one will pass as well, and that we will have a workshop before the next reading on this, so we can understand exactly what we're doing when we do this.
Mr. Roddy, I think I saw your hand.
I was gonna just add, I have no problem moving this forward. However, I would like to make sure we notify all the builders in the area so that they know what we're looking at, and also for us taking input or considering their side as well. So I'll support it, but I do want to make sure that they are notified and kept in the loop of these changes and what's looking to come down the pipe. I don't think this thing is a slam dunk, but we should be talking about ways to control growth management, and I think this may be a tool. I'm not fully behind it, but I'm willing to go to the table and discuss it to see where can we strike that happy medium at to go forward. But I do want to make sure that they're kept in the loop and invited to all the workshops and be a part of all the discussion that we're going to have. So I'll support it on those bases.
Anybody else? That being said, can I get clarification one more time, Mr. Kendry, on what it means if we pass it with the pending ordinance doctrine part of, included in the motion as it presently is?
Absolutely, but interestingly enough, if you have a workshop, the pending ordinance doctrine won't be invoked fully because you have to not only have the reading, you have to notice it for a public hearing. So what I'm hearing is that you want a workshop before the public hearing. But to answer your question specifically, it means you can't issue an inconsistent permit once the pending ordinance doctrine is invoked.
So trying to clarify it for a dense doctor, legally, is it saying that once we pass first reading, it automatically kind of goes into effect?
It's really when you resolve to have the public hearing. So when the public, and it's in the summary, but it's when you notice the public hearing that actually triggers the pending ordinance doctrine.
So if we notice a week from now, then boom, it's in effect.
Yes, sir.
So for that reason, in addition to some of the points that Mr. Winkler made, I mean, I understand the problems in Lake Wiley. I understand the problems in Fort Mill, although Fort Mill's saturated now. There's really no place to put anything else anyway. But per his point, when you're doing things that will have negative repercussions on other parts of the county, western, southern, you have negative repercussions on people that are not wealthy, that are policemen, firemen, emergency techs, that they may not be able to afford their first home now because now you go to a bigger lot size and all of a sudden they're looking at $350,000, $450,000 for a home. Because this, as it is, in my mind, will drive out the builders and they won't have an interest in building homes that may fit what we need for lower income people. So that being said, I have to oppose this motion as stated. So question on the motion.
Mr. Jones, point of clarification on
Yes.
the part that you mentioned about invoking the pending ordinance doctrine.
Right.
So if we issuing permits continuous,
Essentially, once we give notice you correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but once we give notice of the workshop, it essentially kicks into effect.
Not notice of the workshop, notice of the public hearing.
Oh, no, okay, sorry. Notice of the public hearing.
So I was
Sorry,
making the
I
assumption that
misspoke.
a workshop is the entertainment of ideas to perhaps
Right, yeah,
modify the ordinance.
so we wouldn't be
Mental
able to
slip.
so we wouldn't be able to issue any new permits at its current state?
Not under the old size lot. Once the pending ordinance is in effect, they'd have to be the new.
Audrey, you cannot.
So it's
That's
basically,
correct.
it's basically temporary putting the new one kind of in place and having to stay on the old one, but people can't access the old rules.
You can't.
During the pendency of the
Right.
third reading, that's absolutely correct. And what it says is, and once the county is resolved to consider a particular scheme or of change or rezoning ordinance or amendment and is advertised to the public its intention to hold public hearings on the change or rezoning ordinance or amendment prior to the issuance of permits or prior to the commencement of construction. So that's what triggers it, and you can't issue the inconsistent permit, as you stated.
Audrey, I'm sorry.
So would it be best if we had workshops before we did this because it would keep it open?
Well, that was the object of taking the pending ordinance
Yeah,
doctrine statement out, so
Right.
that could occur.
Well,
With it in there, that won't allow that.
Well, I'll have.
Bill.
I think one of the reasons why we're invoking the pending ordinance is I think that it was a recommendation from staff in terms of if we approve this in the next ordinance, that this was going to accomplish the growth management goal. And this was almost an ask from staff so that once we start this, we don't want to have a flood of permits, and we need to give it at least an opportunity and a good chance for us to kind of talk this out at the workshop.
Well, I don't think we'll get a run on it because, if someone's gonna bring a development, they have to have some type of preliminary plans going on And if we're saying, hey, if you don't rush in here by Monday morning, you're not gonna get it, I don't think that's gonna trigger people to have a run on the county of trying to just pull permits to set up a project. But I don't like the idea of, you know, putting that wall up once we give public notice that a builder or developer can't come in that may have something, because these type of situations just don't start up and just happen. These, you know, I'm sure someone's probably formulating some plans and working on some deals or working on some projects, and they may have been ready to come next month. And if we invoke this, or we start setting this in motion, then now they may be sitting there holding some temporary or potential plans, and these plans are no longer any good based on what we're looking to do. I don't want to close that. I don't want to put that wall up now and not have them to be allowed because these type developments that we're talking about, they just don't happen. They take months and months of planning, and I'm sure someone's out there formulating and planning to bring a development based on what the current standards are now. I just don't feel comfortable leaving that in there. And like Mr. Chairman said, you know, if we could remove that portion, we could move on. Otherwise, we need to have the workshops first before we even put any of this in place.
And
I
that
think
just,
staff's
and I
ready.
I
Staff
have
wants,
a,
what staff
Yeah,
wants
I made a
is
motion.
input.
let Mr. Johnson ask his question, we'll get your input.
in my motion, I said prior to second reading, because it was my understanding that second reading would be the public hearing, which would be on, because you're going to publicly publish this on October the 6th, and a public hearing it will be held on November 6th. And my understanding is that is actually second reading. Is that third reading or second reading? Because I may amend based on that.
No, that would be second reading, but unless I'm missing something and I'm looking at Mr. Kendry, the notice is published October 6th, and I think that's the question.
If we put the notice out.
We're
they're
putting a
on
notice out on October the 6th. It gives us a month to hold a workshop and have public hearing.
But the notice of the public hearing is.
The notice is the trigger point.
Is the,
Oh, I
The
understand
notice
that's the trigger. That's.
And that's November, October.
For that
6th.
date, that's it.
Yeah, at the
The
date.
workshops later, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's done.
So,
And that's per one of the points you made, that, you know, it's better to have the whole council discuss an issue that's important, because normally council would direct it to the committee to vet it out or whatever. This kind of became a part of the committee, and then it's now in front of the council without a lot of things being vetted out the proper way.
well, I remember that committee meeting, because I was there, and I didn't know this was actually coming this way, and we had circumvented the, I guess, the rule of thumb or the rule of order. It was, in my opinion, we were discussing different mechanisms that could be put in place, and as a result of that meeting, this came out of it, and I didn't know, and it wasn't my committee. I was I'm part of the committee, but we were just discussing different options that we could look to give staff or tool staff with. But certainly, I wouldn't be in favor of putting that wall up for anyone to be able to capture what they may have already kind of set in motion behind the scenes. So if we can't remove that clause that keeps it open to people looking to build or develop right now, then I will have to, you know, not support this.
I think it would be
Ms.
important
Cox.
to hear from staff as to their recommendation, because my understanding is that, and again, this, like Bump said, we had committee meetings on this. This was something that was brought to us, and I want to thank staff for putting this on paper, because we've either got to do something or we're not. And so you gave us something to vote on and for us to talk about, and this recommendation came in order to address the growth management, to get our tax base back in check. This was a recommendation that you made, and as I understand it, the pending ordinance, part of that is something that staff requested be included in that. If we're serious about growth management, then we need to take this first step, and that was something that was requested by staff, as was the corollary to be approved. So as long as we approve this, plus what's in number 4, that it was the recommendation of staff for us to do the pending ordinance. That is not something our
Do you agree
committee-
with that, Andy? That if we're going to approve this motion and the next motion, that we leave the pending ordinance doctrine in?
Sure, yeah, I think that's fine. The issue has been, this one stand alone without any mechanism for planning commission and staff to negotiate a lower, smaller lot size for increased setbacks, et cetera, then no, this first one would be too heavy-handed, I believe. That's my personal recommendation. However, I think the pending ordinance doctrine component of it does pump the brakes enough for council to discuss this, flesh out the second part of this, which is the third part of new business, and gives us something to work with.
We've spent a lot of time, Bump talks about the developers and everybody spending a lot of time on their developments. And we've spent a lot of time, the zoning committee has spent a lot of time on this. We originally went to the, to staff and we asked for what are the tools that we can use for growth management, being one of council's #1 priorities, one of the 5 top priorities. So that was the question, and this is what they came back with. So we take that to mean that, and the reason, that we've all been all for this all along is because we took that to mean, hey, you know what, this is the tool. This is the tool. And so we've put that here, and I quite frankly am just not interested in having any further delays. I think we need to move on. I think we need to have a workshop. We need to discuss it. We need to come up with what we feel like is the best thing for the county, not for Lake Wiley. Thank you very much. And we need to present that as one unified body. And we need to have that workshop as quickly as we can so that nobody is caught in limbo there. But for right now, I feel like the goal of growth management is in limbo.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, the reason that I'm supporting it is because the staff makes a whole lot more money and a whole lot more qualified to make planning decisions than I am. And I just asked them a flat-out question: do you support this? Will it help with growth management? And is it worth the effort that it takes to do 3 readings? Because it's not easy just to do everything like this. And the answer that I got was yes and yes. Actually, it was yes, sir, and yes, sir, which was not that necessary. But at any rate, that's why I'm supporting it, especially on first reading. I did have the caveat that they need to go together. And to me, that takes my concern about trying to blanketly apply a fix across the county, because accompanied by the second one, it helps in the other parts of the county. And I don't have a problem with pending ordinance. I understand the swell. If it doesn't pass, I don't think we'll lose a whole lot. But that's why I'm supporting this, because staff who's a whole lot better at planning than I am, I'm relying on your recommendation.
And
So,
I'm going to say, Mr. Shanahan,
Mr. Wing.
trying to say something, and then I have a clarifying question if he, okay. Clarifying question. that
Smart
if
man.
We pass this with pending ordinance, we have our workshop, it can still be adjusted by second reading after the workshop. So all we're really doing with this pending ordinance, because if we wait till third reading and it goes into effect, then there's a wall there that everybody's already, so either way, there's a wall, there's a line drawn somewhere. We're just drawing it a couple weeks earlier, so we can still adjust it as we go if we need to, so I'll support it.
Okay. Everything being said, I'll go back and just ask staff, because I got a little bit of a different feedback at the agenda meeting. It was kind of made clear to me that it would be best to have the pending ordinance doctrine removed out of first reading. So am I hearing staff say there is no negative effect to the county at all by passing this as is? No part of the county is going to be adversely affected. It's a positive for the county throughout.
If you do this and you leave out new business 3 and you deny it, then it's not going to be helpful for the county. But putting in new business 3, basically what that does is it says, this department is present and recommend council maintain some form of smaller lot option if council approves the increase in minimum lot size and provides the planning commission the authority to approve such requests based on criteria identified in the ordinance. So
Well,
we're not taking that off. It'll be case by case.
So if we
until
pass the
it's
next
done.
item, then there's no negatives to the county.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, to clarify, that's absolutely right. If left alone, I believe new business 2, which is what we're discussing now, would have a terrible impact on housing stock and probably a number of other issues. However, the recommendation is that 2 and 3 be passed in concert to allow for flexibility in lot size.
And so when in this jumping ahead to the next item, this is per the preference of the planning commission, or do they just make a recommendation to the council?
No,
Or is
sir.
it all in the hands of the planning?
Planning Commission would have more, yes, or more,
So they could pretty much decide.
impact at preliminary plat level to
Yeah.
determine what those, to weigh the criteria that council's gonna help establish on,
That's what we do at the workshop.
on lot size. And that's what the workshop would accomplish, is what exactly are those criteria?
Yeah, well, that makes me even more concerned, so I'm not gonna support this as it is right now, especially with, I probably would still go if the pending ordinance doctrine was taken out, but no way I can support this. I'm too concerned about hardworking people like me that worked hard to try to have an opportunity for their first home, and this is gonna take that away from a lot of people. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
No, me too. Thanks, I almost forgot to say no. Next item, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 154 entitled Subdivision Code, Sections 154.029, Preliminary Plat Review, subsections E and F, in order to allow the Planning Commission to approve residential subdivision with reduced lot sizes that meet certain criteria, to provide additional criteria for the Planning Commission to approve patio home subdivisions, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve with a requirement that a workshop be held prior to second reading.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
There is no pending ordinance doctrine language in this. You don't need that in there so that this takes effect, so it actually countermands the other one? If that's your requirement, if passing one and not doing the other one hurts you, and the other one doesn't take effect for 8 weeks, and this one takes effect immediately, didn't it just hurt you?
This is,
Wrong.
the pending ordinance solely applies to zoning ordinances, and this
Not-
is a
not
subdivision.
this way, because this is an ordinance.
other one will
Then
take-
how does this take effect?
They would run concurrently. They're gonna be on the same schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, that may,
Yeah, I mean, all the readings would be concurrent.
yeah. I see.
And I'm just concerned about placing, Bump, do you want to say anything? Okay. So here again, I'm just concerned about an unelected board making decisions like this, so that people that may be tremendously adversely affected, so I'm not going to support this either. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No.
No.
Next item, if I can get to it here. Discussion regarding planning and development priority list. Bill, did you want to lead this, or? Somebody?
You want me to sit?
Mr.
Chairman,
Johnson?
I had requested that this be placed back on the agenda. Primarily, everyone on this council has received a list. You've seen what the priorities are and what planning is attempting to accomplish. And I want to thank staff for doing all the things they are doing. One of the problems I've found is I asked, well, is this a priority list? And then the answer is, no, it's not a priority list. It's just a list of what we're trying to do. Seems to me that council, if we've set a goal of let's manage growth better, let's do this better, what I'd like to do is for us, the 7 of us, to prioritize this list and to create a priority list. Now, I've talked with several people, and the feedback that I've gotten has been, we need county staff to prioritize this list. We need you to come back and put them in order, 1 through whatever, 12. And then let us rank it ourselves. But we need your feedback. I am not an expert in planning. I don't know if one thing is so much more important, it needs to be done before the other one, or it doesn't make sense. And since we don't have a priority list, we need that priority list, and then we need to rank it. And by ranking it, it will be a signal to you that we're going to fund it, and that we want it done, and we want timelines attached to it so it can be done. Because right now, at least my general feeling is, we have a whole bunch of wants, and there's no real direction on how we're gonna get it accomplished. And I want us to I want this stuff ranked with timelines. So I have an expectation that you're going to accomplish X by this date. And if it happens, doesn't happen, I can question why. Right now, we just have this kind of amorphous list of things we'd like to accomplish one day. And I'd like to get this to concrete numbers. And I'm certainly willing to wait, 2 weeks so staff can rank this list and we can do this. And then simply, my suggestion is that council members, when you get your agenda in 2 weeks, this is listed out in priority, and then you rank it. And we walk in here and we hand staff our rankings compared to their rankings, and we actually start accomplishing something. So that is my theory. Obviously, somebody can't hear me. That's my theory and that is why I asked this to be back. That's why I asked this to be back, because I just don't feel, I feel we continue to just flounder in what, if I were staff, I wouldn't know what council wants, and as council, I don't know what you all think we want, because nothing's prioritized.
Mr. Williams.
I would agree with that. In fact, I think it's an excellent idea to have staff prioritize them. And I would say, and when I got ready for this discussion, I was trying to say which list do we use? We got one in the email, there's one in the yellow folder today, and I think that's, having staff come up and say, this is our priorities, even if it's, we've heard you say, and this is how we got to prioritize it. But what I would really like to see is, as a professional planning staff, this is what we need to do to move this county forward, and we recommend you do that. If we prioritize them different, I understand you do it different, but what I would like to see is that this is what we recommend to plan best.
I think a lot of I'm sorry.
Ms. Love.
Speak, please. I think a lot of the items on this list are reactions to things that have popped up. So what I would like to see along with that timeline is a little note that tells us which one of our 5 priorities that item is connected to. Some of the things on here that I feel like are most important, or some of the most reactive things. And there's some things on the list that I feel like don't even need to be on the list. So we'd like that suggestion also. There's some things on here that are not necessarily important to be looked at. There's some things on here that look like they've just gotten on here because we had a conversation and it got added to the list. When I got the list, I realized, well, it's not in order, so it made me wonder if anybody had looked at it previously, and it made me wonder what the list from a year ago looked like, and if those things were checked off at any point. So I just feel like this is a building list, but their things aren't getting checked off of it. So the timeline, which I had asked for in the last meeting, I'm gonna ask for again, which is the same thing I think that Councilman Johnson's asking for.
Yeah.
And I
Mr. Winkler.
I think it's a great idea. I do like staff giving us what they think, because I'm not a planning person, I'm a financial person, so I don't understand how some of that works. But I'd like to see their top 10 or so, and then I envision us doing this like we do our retreats, where we all rank them ourselves, you average it out, and the one that gets the highest ranking is the first priority and on down the line. A lot of these things are things that one council member's put on that list, and it's not a priority for the other 6 sometimes, so I think that's why we need to do that.
Can I say one more thing before you?
Well, hang on, I'll get back to you. Mr. Roddy, anything?
I like the idea of us getting together and kind of ranking them based on our priority and whatever shakes out with with the most support. Then that's how we can basically come to our consensus as a council, using that method to kind of gauge the order of importance. All of it's important, but I know we don't have staff to designate to bring all this in at one time, but certainly getting a ranking order based on our rating system will help staff.
Ms. Cox.
I think we have lots of lists, and we need to be real clear, and I hope that we spend the next month, six weeks, nailing down exactly what it is that we want to see in the next year in terms of growth management, because to me, that's a different list than what this project list is that was prepared by staff. As I note on here, there's 4 of these that deal directly with our use designations: the concrete plant code revisions, the wineries and special events, outdoor recreation clarification, temporary use festivals. That, to me, is going to be handled directly by what we approved last time, and I want to make sure that that's clear, that we are hiring a consultant to come in and overhaul our use designations, because I just found out another one, in case you guys didn't know. In RUD, you can have a horse now, even if you only have 1 acre. and that's gonna happen, and we need to fix that. I mean, that's just bizarre that those things are in there, and that needs to happen now, and those are the reactive things that we should fix immediately. So I guess I'm looking to staff to say, and make sure council, as I understood council's directive last week, that was gonna happen, and we're gonna take that off your plate, and we're gonna hire somebody else to do that. I'm kind of just asking, did I hear that right? And how long will it take for us to get somebody to do that?
Do you want
If-
to address it verbally?
Evaluate a few consultants that can offer that, so near term.
I'm sorry?
Near term, we can have
It
it
won't be
in
long.
2 weeks, names to
Awesome.
choose from.
Ms. Love?
That's pretty much what I was going to say, is that when we last meeting discussed having a consultant look at these, a lot of these things look like they kind of fall into the same category. And that was my next question, is can they be grouped by what the consultants are going to do versus like what things, so there's kind of two timelines running together, parallel, I think.
Everybody happy? Okay, I certainly don't disagree with, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams?
I would say that's a different question than.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excellent point. Excellent point. I bow to your wisdom. I certainly understand the frustration of council members. I've certainly felt it plenty of times. And I have no problem with this request. I do want to remind, though, because there's been so many individual requests kind of driving the horse, and that's not the way it's supposed to be, that they do have the three that we talked about, the UD rezoning project we're all familiar with, the stormwater utility watershed district. I'm always confused how to say that one, and the thoroughfare plan, which we've asked them to get a hold of, but now each time we do this and say, oh, but go back and do some other priority listing for us, it takes time away from what they're supposed to be doing, and they have to get back on this other stuff. So I would hope it will not be too time-consuming for staff, and they can come back in 2 weeks in a clean, healthy, good vibes, and we can be done with all this stuff and let you finally get to work on what we've been talking about for 2 years. Yes, sir, Mr. Shanahan.
Yes, sir. Just so you know, the items that you listed, thoroughfare plan, impact fee, stormwater, UD, those were a priority one because we're actually working on them and we have funding for them. The other thing is, now you said for staff to go back and identify what we think is the most important that should be prioritized. So if we think there's something that's not on this list, we're gonna identify what we think is important, just so you can see it. So we're not just gonna follow this list, we're going, as Chad said, our planners are paid a lot of money, let's let them do the jobs.
And I want to echo what Dr. Blackwood just said. I mean, I think that this will help with that, because I think you're right, we keep throwing stuff at them. If we have a priority list that we've all discussed, and they say that when we give something to them that we forgot about, like the thoroughfare, all those need to be on it, because they're priorities and they're taking staff time. Then we have something all of a sudden comes up that we need to talk about and we need to put on there, and we can put up a priority list and say, okay, move this. And right now, we just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it, and it's very, very hard to get anything done when you just keep putting stuff in the wheelbarrow.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir,
I'll
Mr.
echo
Johnson.
both. You were absolutely correct, and so is Mr. Williams. I often speak to public groups, spoke to one today, and at lunchtime, and I told them the county council is a golden retriever puppy, and we see bright, shiny objects, and we chase that bright, shiny object every time. It's time to set priorities on a planning level, so we will quit chasing some of these bright, shiny objects and actually start accomplishing something.
And to that point, the last thing I want to say is we have an excellent staff. Bill's built a very strong assistant manager leadership group. So, you know, when I'm, had my mental block for a second there, let it come back. I'm getting older, so it takes a second. But the point, ma'am?
I said, I know a different word for that.
Oh, but, yeah, I won't ask clarification. But I would just ask that the staff, in their love of council members, not to put all their energy in trying to satisfy every individual request, to try to show a strong backbone and say, we don't feel this is appropriate or the right direction to go when it's appropriate to say that. Per what Mr. Williams said, that's what we pay you for, that's what we hired you for. So you don't create a monster that's you're part of, just do your due diligence and tell us straight. And I don't think you needed any motion or anything, that's good enough. So next item, zoning committee meeting report, Honorable Allison Love.
We met today, and it was a quick meeting. It was a long presentation, but it was an easy meeting. We just had a presentation on the stormwater utility, and the Finance and Operations Committee will be getting that same presentation I think the next meeting, and then they'll bring that to, we'll probably have a council workshop to fill everybody in on that, on where they are.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Love. Next item is council member new non-agenda comments. And here again, just remember, council member brings up something for the wisdom, whatever, we don't debate it. You just throw it out there and we move on to the next person if anybody has anything. My gosh.
I'm missing an opportunity to bring up something and not be debated.
Did you have something?
No.
Okay. I do want to remind, or not remind, but bring forth, per some discussions I had with staff last week, that we're going to have a workshop sometime in the next month, per Mr. Kendry's guidance with all that it has to deal with, to review the board committee process, council interactions with said boards and committees, and the whole structure process in general. And if there's no other concerns, and there's nobody that signed up for citizens' concerns, do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes, sir. I move we go into do executive session to discuss a contractual matter involving the Carolina Water Services contract and receive legal advice with an update on the Morningstar litigation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll be back by 7:15.
Council is back in session after receiving receipt of legal advice regarding Morningstar and a contractual matter of CWS. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
To adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.